I agree, actually. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you? You're making me feel hot over there today, though. You got on that nice long sweatshirt. You got on the what do you call that? Like a
Best, yeah.
heavy vest with the snow cap on.
Yep.
Are you a little chilly? You got your gloves sitting next to you in case your little pinkies get cold during the
This is
show.
how I go to bed every night,
Oh,
Ron.
that's right. You did tell me. I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep a minute
It's
if I
post-traumatic
knew that.
stress from, as a child, Bink keeping the thermostat at about 55, 60,
No,
even in
that's
the winter.
even colder than me. Mine is set at 65. It's pretty
65's pretty low.
It's pretty chilly, but I can't sleep when it's hot. I barely sleep when it's not, and I certainly don't go to bed wearing what you wear. Sometimes I wear nothing at all.
Of course, the show's taking an early turn here. Would you agree?
Oh, this is no revelation. I've said this before.
No, you said underwear. You
Once
didn't
in a
say
while.
nothing at all,
Well, occasionally,
even in
nothing
the
else.
winter.
Okay, I told you. What does underwear do when your house is 65 in the winter? Not a lot.
We've
So,
talked about this nudist colony, Ron, in Beaver County. You should just
and
live
I
there.
said I've never
I think
been
they
there.
have
I've never been there.
apartments for rent.
I
Just
said,
live there.
I say I've never been there, and I've never been. I don't even know where it is.
Imagine the money you'll save on clothes, right?
I know. But other than that, I'm doing great. How about you today? Did you have a good night last night?
I don't even remember it. I don't remember what I did last night.
Nothing with your daughter? No games, practices,
No,
events?
yeah, she had volleyball practice, came home, fell asleep. I find after the shows these days, Ron, I'm emotionally spent. I have to take a nap after the show every single day.
I can't nap. I'm not very good at that. I write 2 days, 3 days a week. I write after the show. I write yesterday. I have to write today. So you just go home and see. In this weather, your options are limited. Once spring comes, you want to be out on the course, don't you?
I want to be out practicing golf every day of my life, but I'm still injured. We're going to talk to Paul Daugherty later today from the Bengals, covers the Bengals, I should say, as they have made their way to the AFC title game.
You know what? I saw an interesting note the other day.
Yes.
Think about this now. If the Bengals beat the Chiefs, okay, that's a big if, but say they do. It's not out of the question, right?
No.
If they beat the Chiefs, they will have as many playoff wins this year as the Steelers have had since
Ooh.
2010.
What a
Think-
wonderful segue that is,
Think
Ron.
about that.
What
They've
an
already won two.
What an unintentionally brilliant segue that was, Ron, because we lead off today with this. I'm very curious for people's thoughts on the state of the franchise. And this comes off of our friend Adam Bittner at the Post-Gazette from Sports Business Daily. I don't know if you saw this story or not, but as he says, Ben Roethlisberger's final season wasn't enough to save the Steelers from sharp attendance drops at Heinz Field. And as it turns out, it wasn't enough to keep fans tuned in from their living rooms either. At least, I'll add, not at the pace they have been. They still have very good local ratings, but man, have they dropped. Sports Business Journal on Monday reported that the Steelers sustained one of the biggest drops within its own market, local television, in the entire NFL. 10% of its audience fleeing
That surprises me.
between 20 and 21. Only Houston, Chicago, and Seattle had bigger declines over those 2 seasons, Ron. And when you add in that, attendance was 28th in the league, 60,488. That's 88.4% of capacity. And I believe that's based on tickets sold.
That's and the seating 68,000. So you're talking about 8,000 no-shows or what? Or you know what, Joe? The attendance doesn't surprise me
Yeah.
because of the pandemic. A lot of people still are afraid to go out, and I get that. The viewership just overwhelms me. That shocks me. I thought people would still be watching from the comforts of their living room.
And to be clear, that the ratings are still very good within the NFL.
Just not as good as they've been.
Right.
That surprises me. Not going to the game doesn't. Not watching surprises me. How about you?
It doesn't really surprise me because of the state of the franchise. I actually respect it. I mean, I think people are looking at this and saying, what's going on here? Has the standard been lowered? Are we just running in place? Now, they were 11-0 at one point last year, but of course that careened into a complete disaster. that wound up with the worst playoff loss, probably home playoff loss in the history of the franchise.
I would agree.
I wonder. I wonder. And the attendance kind of jumps out to me, too. Yes, of course, the pandemic, I get people not coming to games, but it's also all relative. So they're 28th in attendance and just 88.4% capacity. I guess I'd have to know that compared to other stadiums. But, man, I know a lot of other stadiums were packed. They were packed all the time. But television, to me, along with you, is the bigger story here. And as Bittner says, and here's the question that I think we could present. He says COVID-19 may have been a contributing factor to the drop in TV even, because sports ratings have dropped overall, right?
Maybe people don't go to other people's houses to watch games.
Maybe.
Like I used to love to. Well, I never was invited to the Starkey house for a game, but if I had
Not
been,
yet.
if I had been, I would have gone. But I wonder how many people don't do the parties and viewerships, or even go out to the bars and watch like they used to. Maybe
that's definitely true. But would that affect TV ratings? I would think, if anything,
you'd still be watching at home.
If anything, it would help
Right.
because instead of being surrounded around one TV, you'd all
Right.
be dispersed watching from your
That's a
own.
good
I
point.
don't know. I don't know how to figure
I'm just
those
still
things.
surprised by that. But go ahead.
Well, he said COVID may have been a factor as 28% of respondents to a Post-Gazette poll in October said, yeah, it's been an issue even in watching games. However, a 53% majority blamed recent mediocrity and early playoff exits. And Ron, I'm just curious, from people out there, from Steeler fans,
Why aren't you watching?
yeah. I mean, again, many are relative to the rest of the NFL. But if you're among those who aren't, or
Why?
if you're among those who have literally been turned off, why?
Why?
I have to believe it's about the state of the franchise right now. I see a franchise largely running in place right now, but maybe more to the point, I think there's a real good chance this is going to continue hovering below, maybe above 500.
Well, if you watched the games over the weekend and saw that quarterback play, it makes you wonder how you're going to keep up with that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Or not keep up. You're not already. How you catch up to that.
Exactly. But given the schedule and the fact that other than a couple of elite quarterbacks on it, you have a bunch of Carolinas, Jets, Philly, Indy, etc. Of course, the Steelers in any state could finish with 8 or 9 wins, maybe push it to 10, maybe go as low as
Make
7.
the playoffs.
I think 20 teams had between 7 and 10 wins. That's where the Steelers are. That's where they are. That's where 2/3 of the league is. They're right there. So I think people have been turned off to this in a large way.
Well, the numbers you say indicate that. I just be curious as to know why.
412-928-9370. 928-9370. The state of the franchise. That is, it's a big number, man. I guess I shouldn't say I'm not surprised, Ron. The number is a little bigger than I would have guessed. 10% of the television audience gone in 2 years?
That shocks me. That does. It shocks me. There's still, it's the NFL. What else do you do on a Sunday in the fall? Maybe you rake leaves for a while until the weather gets bad, but what else do you do?
Yeah.
If you're a sports fan. Now, not everybody's a sports fan. We talk to sports people because that's what we do, but, there's a large portion of Pittsburgh out there that could give a damn about the Steelers or Penguins or anything.
Now imagine if there wasn't the compelling Ben story and the season went the way it did. I mean, I would have to think that those final couple of games,
I would have to think that
gigantic
Cleveland
ratings.
game would have to
Yes.
have had a gigantic rating.
Right.
And Baltimore.
So imagine next year what could happen if you have
The
Mason,
Mason
Rudolph,
Rudolph show?
flying around and they go 9-8 or 8-8-1
Or 8-7-2.
or 7-7-3. I mean, what happens then? I want to know from people.
At least you can add anyway.
The Steelers, they're even though the Pirates have been around longer, Ron, we all agree that this is a football town first and foremost, and that they're more ingrained in generations of families.
I don't
than,
know if I would
others.
agree with that. I
You
don't
think
know
the
that
Pirates maybe?
I don't know that it's a football town. It's a Steelers town.
Really? You
I
don't
think-
think Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh is a football town?
Not maybe like it used to be. I don't think high schools are as big as they used to be. I mean, Pitt still struggles to get people with the games despite being an ACC champion this year. It is a Steelers town first and foremost.
And would
And
you
nothing.
agree?
And the Penguins have made great gains, but I don't. To me, they're not close.
Not close.
Even though they have their fans, and it's,
Yes.
the Pirates have just totally fallen off the face of the earth. But it's a Steelers town for me. Not so much football, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. So your thoughts on this? We'd love to have them. I can't imagine if Ben wasn't the compelling story late in the season what this would have looked like. Even with a run to the playoffs, such as the playoffs are with the third wild card, 412-928-9370. And I think this leads pretty clearly into a lot of different topics. And I think one that I got a lot of in the mailbag that you and I have heard a lot about, Ron, is what about Mike Tomlin's power in the organization? Obviously, Mike Tomlin is a good coach. The numbers, wins and losses, regular season, speak for themselves. He's obviously a really sharp football guy. We know that. Youngest coach ever to win a Super Bowl, all of that. But a lot of people, it feels to me, are wondering if Mike Tomlin has too much power here. He's the defensive coordinator. He's the head coach. He's hiring all the coaches. He appears to not want to have coaches, I won't say who threaten him, but who are or anything other than people that he can certainly control.
Yes, man?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, man?
Ironically.
Yes, man?
Exactly. Instead of the alternative would be strong-willed outsiders with long-time NFL resumes who would come here with their own ideas.
That's interesting. You know what I think of when you say that? I think of Mike Sullivan, the hockey coach, not the quarterback's coach. Mike Sullivan, the hockey coach, had Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet was anything but a yes man. He would challenge Sullivan. Now, Sullivan still would have the final say, but he would challenge him. He wasn't a yes man. And I don't know about these other guys. I mean, it was Keith Butler. I mean, obviously he had to defer play calling because that's his boss. I mean, if your boss tells you what to do, if you want to keep your job, you defer. But I always remember Sullivan talking about how Tocchet would challenge him. And he said, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me in the organization.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Tomlin gets that.
Munchak was an example of bringing in an outsider with a strong resume and
a gold jacket. Don't underestimate that.
Yes, and he became the run game coordinator. Now, the run game started to slip in his later years here, too, but that is an example of Tomlin doing that. But he was a run game coordinator, but he wasn't one of the top two guys on the staff. And it seems very clear that Butler was a figurehead coordinator, really good linebackers coach.
And I'm sure had a big part of the game plan, too. You know, those coaches meet all week long, but when it comes down to rug cutting time, if you will, Tomlin would make the calls.
Sure. I mean, that's like you and I collaborating on an offensive game plan, but in the heat of battle, I'm the guy making all the play calls.
Well, that's sort of the way we run this show. You're the guy who does everything.
I mean, what is it if you're not calling the plays on game day?
Mike is his own defensive coordinator.
And we're going to listen to Keith Butler with our PM guys from yesterday, and he talked to Jerry the other day, Dulac from the Post-Gazette, and said that this started late in Dick LeBeau's tenure here. And then you have Tomlin's hiring practices on the recent history, I'll say. Adrian Clem was a guy he hired. Matt Canada, who you would figure is a guy Tomlin could control. You know what I mean, Ron?
Sure, I do.
And I think a lot of people wonder about that. And I think a lot of people feel like the Steelers are just running in place here.
Well, again, when I said the Bengals can have as many playoff wins this year as the Steelers in the last 11.
That's stunning.
That's a stunning statement, isn't it?
It really is.
For a franchise that hadn't won since when, 1990?
And all playoff wins aren't created the same. They're all good, but I feel like it always has to be mentioned that the Steelers got handed one of them by the idiot Bengals back when they were idiots. That game was over pretty much, and then they have a miracle fumble, and then Pac-Man and his buddy Vontaze Burfict basically handed them that game. And the other one was against Matt Moore, right?
Yeah. The legitimate one was in Kansas City.
Yes. Yes, it was.
That was very legit.
Very legit. It's not like they beat an elite quarterback, but it was very legit.
Alex Smith isn't a bum either.
No.
But
None of them. I mean, that
you
was
go on the
an
road and you
impressive win.
but you don't score a touchdown and you still get the win.
Right.
So.
I wouldn't call any of them great playoff wins, but that was a good one. That was a good one in Kansas City. When's the last time they beat a really good quarterback in a playoff game? Like a really good one. When?
Who they beat in 10 along the way? Who did they?
Bud Fumble in the AFC
The Jets.
Championship. Flacco, maybe at that time?
Yeah, Flacco was a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah. They beat Flacco. And before that,
Fumble.
I can't remember. I can't
I'd have
remember.
to go back and look.
Kurt Warner?
That was the Super Bowl in 2008. He was a Hall of Famer.
Other
That's
than
pretty
Flacco, was it? Yeah,
That-
that was good, but it was
that's
also
pretty good.
2008. So
good. Right.
people who saw that are heading off to college soon, Ron.
Or
It's the year my daughter was
headed
born.
to 6 feet under, maybe.
I mean, it's pretty stunning to look at this. It really is. 10% drop in television ratings. Stadium filled 88.4% of capacity. Which of those stands out more to you? Post-Gazette poll says 53% blame the Steelers' recent mediocrity and early playoff exits. And then where are we going from here? These might be the good old days.
You know, after watching the playoffs so far, I feel so much worse about their future than I did headed into these playoffs. Not that I didn't know Mahomes was great or Allen was great or Burrow was great or Herbert is great. But after you see what they do, it looks like they're playing a different style of football to me.
Man, it's a golden age of young quarterbacks in the AFC. It reminds me of Ben with Peyton, who wasn't that young anymore, and Brady.
And Rivers.
All in their primes, contending for how many years was it that somebody other than those three went to a Super Bowl in the AFC?
A long time. Yep.
And I can see that exact
12
same
out of
thing
13
happening.
years or something
Yes.
like that.
I can see the exact same thing happening with Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes in particular.
Right. No.
There was another stunning stat. Mahomes, only quarterback in history, first 4 years as a starter, made it to his conference championship game. How about that?
That's surprising when you watch that kid play.
Wow. So here we are. The state of the Steelers. Ron, I have the answer to all this. The elixir coming up next with our quarterback of the day.
Sounds like a tease.
We
didn't do one yesterday.
That's because Bob was here. He was the quarterback.
Yeah,
of the day.
he would have screwed it up.
What a nice man he is, huh, Ron?
Not so much.